The US has sent Israel $174 billion since 1948. Counting for inflation, what's that worth today? It's over $310 billion. Israel is the single largest recipient of American foreign aid since World War II. And if you're Canadian watching this thinking, that's not my problem, your own pension fund is quietly in the story too. I'll show you exactly where in a minute. Most people arguing about this online can't tell you where a single dollar actually goes, what it actually buys, or what's actually costing them right now. So let's dig up what's actually buried here right now. Here's the number you'll hear defended constantly. 3.8 billion a year from the US locked in through 2028. Compared to the 6.75 trillion US federal budget, that sounds small. But here's what almost never makes the headline. This isn't the first deal, it's the third. In 1999, under Clinton, a 10-year deal worth $26 billion total. 2007, under Bush, 10 years, $30 billion. 2016, under Obama, 10 years, $38 billion. Every single deal bigger than the one before it. That's not a coincidence, that's a pattern. On top of that, after war broke out in October 2023, an extra $21.7 billion in wartime aid landed in just 2 years. In 2025 alone, $37.6 billion in weapon sales got approved. 1 year, $37.6 billion. And here's a stat that never gets said out loud. Since the year 2000, more than 86% of all US aid to Israel has been military spending, not hospitals, not schools. That $3.3 billion a year in financing covers roughly 16% of Israel's entire annual military budget, according to the Congressional Research Service. $1 in $6 Israel spends on its military comes directly from American taxpayers. Military aid is doing a lot of work in that phrase and hiding what it really means. That money is required by the deal itself to be spent on weapons made in America. F-35 stealth fighters, F-15 fighter jets, KC-46 refueling tankers, one contract alone, nearly $1 billion. Inceptor missiles for Iron Dome, David Sling, and Arrow. So here's the actual chain nobody draws out for you. Your tax dollars get labeled foreign aid, get sent to Israel, and immediately get sent back on American-made hardware, built by Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and RTX, whose shareholder profits on both ends of the transaction. It's not a check that leaves the American economy. It's a loop. Tax dollars in, weapon contracts out, defense stocks up. Now, if you're Canadian, don't tune out. This part's about you specifically. The Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, the fund that holds the retirement money of 22 million Canadians, increased its holdings in companies doing business with Israel's military and government by roughly $23 billion in a single year, according to a report tracking those investments. That's a jump of over 80% in 12 months, bringing total holdings to about $54.8 billion. That's not a government program you voted on. That's your retirement account on autopilot, buried in a filing almost nobody reads. And it's not just pensions. Canada and Israel have a free trade deal, CIFTA, with two-way trade around $1.8 billion a year. Now layer in the gas pump. When the last major flare-up hit last spring, Canadian gas prices jumped up from about $1.33 a liter to $1.50 a liter in 1 week. And here's the part economists point out that most people miss. The Canadian dollar used to rise with oil prices cushioning the blow. That relationship has weakened. So when oil spikes now, Canadians feel it more directly than they used to. less of a shock absorber. Straight to the pump, straight to your grocery bill. Let's get back to the US side for a second because this number is too big to skip. 3.8 billion a year over 10 years is $38 billion. That's enough to fully fund college grants for every low-income student in the country for multiple years straight. Here's the part almost nobody connects to this conversation. Right now, the US government pays over $1 trillion a year just in interest on the national debt. Not defense, not this aid, just interest. That's now more than the entire US defense budget, according to the Congressional Budget Office's own numbers. We are borrowing money at cost to keep the country running. Every dollar sent anywhere, including overseas, adds to a debt so large the interest alone now outspends the Pentagon. So, when people say it's just $3.8 billion, who cares? They ignore something big. We're not paying with money we have. We're paying with money we're borrowing. At a moment, the interest bill already beats the military budget. Here's the part that hits faster than any budget line. That region doesn't just receive money, it produces instability. And instability moves oil prices fast and globally, which means it hits Americans and Canadians the same week. A fifth of the entire world's oil moves through the Strait of Hormuz. When that route gets nervous, prices don't wait for the Congress to debate anything. You fund a conflict with your tax dollars, that conflict makes energy markets nervous. Nervous markets raise prices at the pump, which raises shipping costs, which raises the price of everything trucked to your grocery store on both sides of the border. You're paying for this twice. Once when the check gets written, again every time you fill up your tank. I want to know what you think, especially the Americans. Now that you know interest payments alone outspend the entire military, should this be first on the chopping block? And for Canadians, did you know your pension fund had that much exposure before this video? Say where you're watching from and make your case. Don't just rage type and bounce. Let me know in the comments. So here's where I land. It's just 3.8 billion. Don't worry about it. Which what people say, I technically would say it's true, but it's also completely misleading. The real total, stacked with wartime surges and arms sales, is a lot bigger than that. It's borrowed money. At a moment, interest payments alone outspend the entire US military. It's your pension fund if you're Canadian, quietly holding a growing stake in this too. It's every spike at the gas pump on both sides of the border when that region gets unstable. Add it up, and this isn't a rounding error. It's a real, ongoing cost, hiding in places you were never taught to connect back to. The question was, does this cost anything? It always costs something. The question is whether you think it's worth it, and whether you even knew the full bill before today. If you liked getting the real number instead of the headline, that's this whole channel. I break down debt traps, banks, and money stuff nobody explains simply on both sides of the border because staying confused is how you end up paying more. Subscribe if you want the next one. Tell me in the comments what to break down next. See you in the next one.